Picture two closets. One belongs to someone drowning in debt. It's full of designer labels, a fresh pair of sneakers still in the box, a watch that cost more than a car payment. The other closet belongs to a millionaire. It's full of plain t-shirts, a 10-year-old jacket, shoes that have been resoled twice. If you swap the owners without telling anyone, almost everyone would guess wrong. That backwards guess isn't an accident. It's not random taste. It's your brain, running code that's thousands of years old, applied to a world that rewards the opposite of what it once rewarded. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Start with the poor buying rich things. It sounds irrational. It sounds like a decision anyone should regret. But the economist Thorstein Veblen had a theory for this over 100 years ago. He called it conspicuous consumption. Spending money not for the use of a thing, but for what the spending says about you. Veblen noticed something strange about wealthy society at the time. People weren't just buying comfort, they were buying visible proof that they didn't need to worry about money. A servant nobody strictly needed. A dress designed to be useless for actual work. The waste was the point. The waste was the message. Now flip that logic downward. If you have very little money and status still matters to your brain the same way it mattered to your ancestors, what do? You can't prove wealth with a stock portfolio nobody can see, so you prove it with something everyone can see. Shoes, a phone, a jacket with a logo loud enough to read from across the room. Is that foolish? Maybe, but it's also deeply human. Why does a status symbol feel more urgent when you have less to lose? Because status, to your ancient brain, was never really about money. It was about belonging. It was about not being the person left behind when resources ran low. For most of human history, being visibly low status wasn't just embarrassing. It was dangerous. Groups that saw you as weak or unworthy might not share food with you during a famine, might not choose you as a mate, might not defend you when trouble came. Status wasn't vanity, it was insurance. So when someone with very little money spends on something visible and impressive, they're not being reckless. They're paying an ancient insurance premium in a currency their ancestors would recognize immediately, even if a modern accountant wouldn't. Here's where it gets stranger. Scarcity itself changes how your brain thinks, not just what it wants. The researchers Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir spent years studying this exact effect, and their findings reshaped how economists think about poverty. They found that scarcity of money, of time, of anything essential captures the mind. It pulls your focus toward the immediate problem so hard that everything outside of it gets blurry. In one striking study, researchers tested the cognitive performance of sugarcane farmers in India before and after harvest. Before harvest, when money was tight, the same farmers scored measurably lower on tests of reasoning and problem solving. After harvest, with money in hand, their scores improved. Same brain, same person, different bandwidth, because scarcity itself was quietly eating their mental resources. This is the part that should stop you. It's not that people under financial stress make worse decisions because they're less capable. It's that scarcity itself borrows cognitive capacity, the same way a computer slows down when too many programs run at once. Long-term planning, the very thing that would fix the money problem, requires exactly the mental space that scarcity takes away first. So the person buying the flashy item isn't failing to plan. Their brain is, in that exact moment, biologically less equipped to plan because it's too busy solving today. Now walk into the other closet, the millionaire's closet, plain, worn, unremarkable. The researchers Thomas Stanley and William Danko studied this directly. interviewing and surveying real American millionaires instead of guessing from the outside. Their findings were almost the opposite of what popular culture expected. Most of these millionaires lived below their means. Many drove ordinary cars, wore ordinary clothes, and would have been invisible in a crowd. Why would people with enormous financial cushion choose to look so plain? Because once your brain no longer needs to prove status to survive, the ancient signal loses its urgency. If you already know, deep down, that you're not one missed paycheck from disaster, the impulse to broadcast that fact to strangers quiets down. The insurance premium stops feeling necessary because the threat it was protecting against no longer feels real. There's another layer here, one that flips the whole status game on its head. In certain circles, the wealthiest people actually gain status by appearing to not care about status at all. This is sometimes called stealth wealth, though the instinct behind it is old and familiar. A person who doesn't need to prove anything and visibly doesn't try to sends an even stronger signal than flashy spending ever could. It says, "I am so secure that I don't need your approval." That too is a costly signal, just an inverted one. It only works if the plainness is a choice, not a necessity. So both closets are sending signals. One says, "Notice me, I belong." The other says, "I don't need you to notice me at all." Both are ancient. Both are about survival. They just come from opposite ends of the same evolutionary rope. Here's the twist that ties it together. The behavior isn't really about income. It's about felt security. Give someone a sudden windfall without giving them a sense of long-term safety, and the old scarcity wiring often stays active. This is part of why lottery winners and people who suddenly earn large sums sometimes spend in ways that look, from the outside, just as visible and urgent as before. The money changed. The nervous system underneath it didn't, at least not right away. And give someone modest means but a rock-solid sense that their needs will always be met, and you sometimes see the opposite. A quiet, understated relationship with spending because the ancient alarm bell simply isn't ringing. This reframes the whole question. It was never really about how much money is in the account. It's about whether your nervous system believes it's safe. Think about your own spending for a moment. The purchases that felt most urgent, the ones you couldn't quite explain later, they probably weren't about the object at all. They were about a feeling underneath it, a need to prove something to someone, including maybe yourself. The next time you feel that pull towards something visible and expensive, it's worth pausing to ask what your ancient brain is actually trying to protect. Not the item, not even the money. Just an old, deep fear of being the one left without a seat when the music stops. Picture those two closets one more time. They were never really about clothes or shoes or watches. They were about two different answers to the exact same ancient question: am I safe? One closet is shouting the answer for the world to hear. The other closet already knows.